Welcome to our three-part series on grant writing for success. Our first part is good grant writing is good storytelling. Part 2 is how to complete the Arts Council's grant applications, very specific information, which expands upon Part 1. And Part 3 is reuse, recycle, and reapply. I'm Arlene Krebs, and many of you may know me as a longtime board member of the Arts Council and its former president. And I'm delighted to be presenting information today to increase your skills and your success in grant writing. I have to say, I have written many grants applications. And when I enter that grant writing space, it's a very creative space for me. Just as a visual artist will use a brush and paint color to create a picture, so do I do it with words. And that's my biggest advice to you. Mantra number 1. Good grant writing is good storytelling. You appeal to the heart in order to reach the pocket. So how do you write well? Well, it is a skill just like any that keeps improving with practice. The number one issue that I find when I read grants or I write other people's narratives is they're writing for the eye and not for the ear. You don't want to do that. You want to write for the ear and not the eye. You want to have a conversation with your grant reviewer. You want to make your writing clear, concise, and the first 2 or 3 sentences really have to capture the imagination of the reviewer to motivate him or her to continue reading with excitement and suspense about the story you're telling. So you don't begin with, our project requires, or the mission of our organization is, or some other really mediocre opening. What you want to do is to start to tell your story. And we're going to be developing a story in this series about a local library that needs a mural, a visual depiction of its services and its history. So in that scenario, you would not start with saying, our library in the town needs a mural. No. Our library, which is over 50 years old, can benefit from a visual mural that depicts its history and the services that it offers when one enters its doors. This visual will depict the story writing and storytelling activities it provides for preschoolers to children, digital literacy classes for adults, and the very exciting after-school arts education programs that it fosters, period. Now, I just made up those 2 sentences. If you listened carefully, it's active, not passive verbs. It already is telling the story, and then you can proceed. Each sentence must build upon the previous sentence. Don't repeat yourself. Don't be redundant. Make the ideas exciting. If you say the same idea in 2 sentences, merge them or choose a sentence that's most active, most exciting, most descriptive. Edit, edit, edit. I can't tell you how many times I will go through a grant application that I'm writing to be concise, and most importantly, in these days of online grant submissions, to make sure that I'm meeting the character requirements, the maximum characters with spaces that the response states. So if it says 1,500 characters, I actually keep a tally as I'm writing. I may go up to 1,600 characters, which means I have to go back and edit, edit, edit. It forces me to be concise. Moreover, your Microsoft Word or whatever word processing system you're using, whatever application, the character counts rarely match the online character counts. So for a 1,500 character response, I'll come in at 1,492, 1,495, just to be sure that when I cut and paste that information into the online portal, I don't have to go back and edit again. Another big advice about good grant writing is not only do you lead the reviewer on creating sentences that are exciting, that are telling your story, and that provide transition between ideas, never ever leave your reviewer with a question. An easy example is 70% of the library's constituents use the library monthly. Well, 70% of how many constituents? 100? 1,000? 5,000? Fill in the blanks. And a good way to do that is to give your draft to someone who really knows very little about your organization or about the operating support or the program support you're applying for. Have him or her read it. And then if they have questions or they don't understand something, then you can edit. And finally, another trick that I use is, believe it or not, in these days of online and electronic communications, I print out my draft narrative. I will see if there is a word missing. But most importantly, another key point, which I always told my students and which I tell everyone, is read it aloud. You will hear missing words or awkward phrasing or dangling phrases. So read it aloud. Don't be embarrassed. Find a quiet spot, and you'll be able to then move on in completing your grant application. Now, another key component of the grant application is all the boilerplate information. You should have boilerplate information readily at hand that all it needs is to be updated for each grant application. So, for example, boilerplate information includes, number one, all of that contact information, including your organization's EIN that you receive from the IRS. It usually includes your mission statement. A mission statement should be vibrant. It should explain what your goals are, really, what your vision is, but it's your mission. And that statement is generally required in 500 characters or less. So the mission of the Arts Council is, the mission of your nonprofit organization is. Again, that usually is a sentence or two. You can enlarge upon it. For example, I would write for the Arts Council. For the past 84 years, the Arts Council from Monterey County has been, etc. So I'm updating the mission a little bit. Another boilerplate information you should have readily on hand, number 3, is the demographics of the constituency that your organization serves. Maintain accuracy per your ethnicities, your income levels, the age groups of your constituents. I know many people are hesitant to provide information about their ethnicity, their race, etc. But if you gently explain that this is really necessary for grant applications, I found that people are really willing to fill out their ethnicity and identify themselves per. You can find information also through the US government census and local, state, and figures, demographic figures on websites. So make sure you have that readily at hand, because nearly every grant application will ask you on the cover, describe the people you serve, or within the body of the narrative. Number 4 of your boilerplate information is your board of directors list. This should include the person's name, his or her title on the board, and I always begin with the president or chair, vice president, treasurer, secretary. And then the directors, so it includes their name. It generally asks their title on the board, the number of years served, often is their city of residence, particularly for local foundations. They like to see a broad swath of representation, people from the peninsula area, from North and South County, etc. And also sometimes it asks for their professions. So do have that available. Also required, either in the financial upload section, but always required, is your organization's annual budget. Most often required, boilerplate number 6, is your largest financial gifts. Many foundations ask you for the 10 largest financial gifts. This can be from funding agencies, foundations, or charitable giving programs that you receive money, from MC Gives, from donors, but you keep a list of that. Then you'll have boilerplate number 7, their required financial files. I actually, for the organizations that I grant write for, I actually have a separate folder on their financial files, and within that folder I'll have subfolders 2017, 2018, 19, and 20, in which I continuously update and ask them for their updated financials. This can include their balance sheet, their profit and loss, as your P&L, as well as next year's budget, for which the grant request is referring to. So we're writing grant request in 2020. They may be asking for, if you're on a fiscal year, a 2021 budget, if you're on a calendar year, for a 2021 budget or 2022 budget. If it's a 2-year application, those are difficult. You name them as a draft, but at least it demonstrates to the funding organization that you are on top of this information. Your board, which has fiscal responsibility, is already in the planning stages. Boilerplate information number 8. Many grant applications ask you for testimonials. Someone who's really appreciative of what you've done for him or her, or another organization expressing its thanks. Keep those on hand. Sometimes they require you to identify the person, their age, or the city in which they reside. And finally, boilerplate number 9 is all your supporting materials. And we had that in some of the questions that you've asked prior to our taping. Yes, have photographs on hand. Yes, have your latest brochures. Yes, the latest articles about you in newspapers, your latest emails, your latest advertisements, anything that demonstrates what your organization is doing and the constituents that you serve. Okay, so that's background on good grant writing tips and skills, your boilerplate information. So let's move more deeply now into various components of a grant application. Nearly every grant application in the narrative section requires a background and history of your organization. You can consider this also boilerplate information that needs to be updated in terms of having the basic facts and stats. However, this background and history in your organization is also the first 2 or 3 sentences that the reviewer will read. So again, I urge you to make that exciting, to make it suspenseful, to make it so that it captures the imagination of the reviewer. Here's one that I'm writing for the Arts Council. For nearly 40 years, the Arts Council of Monterey County has spearheaded exciting arts events, educational initiatives, special art projects, support for artists and their needs, and its ongoing support of over 100 nonprofit arts and cultural organizations in our county. The Arts Council offers these organizations advice, encouragement, experience, and its knowledge. The California Council of the Arts has listed our organization as among the top 3 of the 53 arts councils in California state. Okay, so now we've got some background on the organization. You can fill that in. You will tell them about some past activities and also lead them on to current activities, which is demonstrating also the need for your project. Okay, what is the need for your project? As arts nonprofits, is it to provide more special programs? Is it to have a theater event? Is it for operating support? Is it a special project, a one-time request to create a mural on a city building or at a school or library? What is the need for your community that your nonprofit is responding to? Again, describe it so that it's appealing to the heart. Describe it so that you're engaging various constituents. Describe it so that you're reaching out to multiculturally diverse and intergenerationally diverse, ethnically diverse constituents that you serve. Say what their needs are, say what your response to that need is, and then another part of this, which you can weave into and use as a seg, there is often a question following the need or how you respond to the need. Tell us about your constituents. And again, this is part of your boilerplate information, but here is where you'll expand it. So we can say that in Monterey County, over 59% of our population is Latinx, and in our organization, we serve X number of that percentage, and of that X number of that percentage, so many are families, so many are individuals, so many are people who are children, so many are youth, and then go on in that area to respond and describe the people who you're involving in this particular project. So for example, if you're going to be applying for a visual to create a mural on the city's library, you have really two constituents to describe. The constituents in your organization and the constituents of the library. And also, the reason I've chosen a library and an arts and cultural organization is, and we'll discuss this much later in parts number 2 and 3, it's always good to collaborate. Showing collaboration, demonstrates broad community support and broad community involvement. So partnerships are important, and the more that you have in any one of your requests, the more likelihood you are to engage the funding agency in supporting you. Okay, part 4 usually of a grant application is describing your project goals and outcomes. We will talk about this more in depth in part 2, but I need to tell you that goals are always active verbs. To create, to involve, to support. So make them active and make them, label them, and then list outcomes. If you have a goal, then you have an outcome that you're anticipating. So I always introduce the goals with a sentence or two as the opening paragraph, and then I'll list the 2 or 3 goals, and under each of those goals, I will list an outcome. In part 2, we will go into that more in depth. The next section that's always required for good grant writing is the evaluation plan. Now, we're not looking at pre and post surveys, as so often happens in educational grant applications, where we'll be looking at surveying our participants before they participated in the project and then with thousands of individuals. In this, we can create brief surveys. Surveys are great to use for your evaluation plan. as are focus groups and individual or small group interviews. Google Docs or SurveyMonkey are excellent tools to use. You can do some pre-survey of your applicants, of your constituents, of the people who you're serving in your project, and then post-survey them. You want to include an evaluation plan that demonstrates that you will have the responses to the questions for the required grant reports that most foundations, and certainly the Arts Council, requires on the grant award that you have received. So your evaluation should match your goals and outcomes, and it should be accessible and agile for you to use in your grant reporting. I know that Google Docs has a wonderful online survey because it produces graphs and pie charts for you to use. It also allows for long format or short answer responses, which I often download, edit, and use not only in my reporting, but also for the next grant application I'm going to write. And we'll deal with that in part 3. Reuse, recycle, and reapply. Then on the cover sheet, it often requires a project or program name. Again, this is something that I actually meditate on because you want to make it catchy. You want it to explain. So it's not a project title, $50,000 request for operating support. It's something like supporting the 50 years of our organization for the future and into the future. See, I just edited myself. So you want to make it something that it will be appealing not only to the reviewer, but those project titles are used in the online listing that the foundation or giving organization will refer to when it lists the monies that, or the organizations that it has awarded monies to for that annual report. Finally, you need the executive summary of your project. Sometimes it's as few as 100 characters, sometimes as many as 500 characters. That executive summary captures, is a snapshot, is a synopsis, is a photograph of your grant request. I usually don't write that. It's usually part of the cover or the opening of your grant application in the online portal. I usually don't write that until I finish my narrative. And again, it has to be like a brushstroke of a painting. It has to tell the picture. That will also be used in annual reports, in websites, in what the funding agency will use to list as the grant applications or the grant awards that it has made that fiscal or year. Last bit of advice for part 1 of our seminar, our workshop, is that grant writing is a team effort. Preparing the grant application can and should be members of your team helping you and participating. You can assign the various sections of your grant application to members of your nonprofit organization. Someone who'll put together all of the boilerplate information. This can be 1 or 2 people, but they are keeping that up to date. They're keeping your demographics up to date, making sure your mission statement reflects up-to-date information, making sure the background and history of your organizations has the latest facts and stats. Someone who will be drafting the annual budget for the fiscal year of your grant request. Someone who will be working on the project budget. The project budget requires a lot of thought, and we will be looking at that more deeply in part 2. But someone should be helping you list the amount you're requesting, the other sources of funding, the in-kind contributions that your organization is making, and what that request means in terms of a brief budget narrative. And finally, the team effort involves all of the supporting materials, keeping those updated, relevant, and reflective of the latest initiatives, the latest information, the most current pictures, testimonials about your organization. So this is the broad overview of how to make your grant application the most appealing, the best storytelling, the most informative about your application. And I tell you this, that again, your grant writing appeals to the heart and never leaves the reviewer with a question. How do I know this? I have served on grant review teams for public, state, and federal agencies pre-internet days, where I participated with teams of reviewers in multi-million-dollar grant requests for the Department of Education, National Endowment for the Humanities, National Endowment for the Arts, National Science Foundation, etc. And what I learned from that experience is how reviewers think, what they're looking for. Another major component, which we'll talk about in part 2, is the timeline and project management requirements. That would often be the first thing we'd look at to see if this organization has the skills, the fortitude, the management experience to manage the project for which it's requesting funding. Okay, that's it for part 1. I'm going to look through these questions that you asked for. What documents do you need for a fiscally sponsored group? It's often right there on the grant application requirements for sure. You need the fiscally sponsored EIN, that it's a nonprofit organization, and you need their IRS letter of determination. And you will need a letter in which it has agreed to support you as a fiscal sponsor. What makes a strong application? I hope that we've answered that. How do you articulate the importance of your mission? We have discussed that. Again, active verbs, not passive sentences. And yes, include photos. And we'll deal with some of the other questions that in parts 2 and part 3. So I hope this has been informative. I hope you learned. And if you have any other questions, please send them to the Grant Arts Council, and perhaps we'll be able to answer those offline. Thank you and have a great day.